Today, in What's New in 22Q, we're diving deep into the incredible workings of our brains, and specifically what new research is telling us about 22Q11.2 deletion syndrome. Our goal, as always, is to bring you insights that are clear, hopeful, and, truly helpful for you and your loved ones. We're going to explore the critical role of a specific part of the brain called the hippocampus, and how its function might offer some new understanding of psychosis, especially in the context of 22Q11DS.
Exactly. And this deep dive, it's based on a very recent review article just published online this July 2025. It's in the journal Biological Psychiatry. The title is, How Does Altered Function of the Hippocampus Contribute to the Development of Psychosis?
Hmm.
And it was put together by a really dedicated team synthesizing quite a lot of previous work in the field.
Okay, right. Let's unpack this then. Our mission today is really to take some, let's be honest, complex science, distill the most important discoveries, and see what this research truly means for you. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. You might already know that 22q11.2 deletion syndrome is considered one of the highest genetic risk factors for schizophrenia. And this article, it highlights that about 20% of individuals with 22q11DS over the age of 18, they do develop psychosis.
That's right. And what's truly fascinating here is how much this research focuses on the hippocampus. You can think of the hippocampus as, well, a central hub in the brain, really important for memory and learning. It's crucial. This review brings together just a lot of evidence, showing that for people with 22q11DS, and also those with other forms of psychosis, it's part of the brain, it often isn't functioning quite as it should. The article really points out that these changes seen in 22q11DS closely mirror what's observed in other individuals experiencing psychosis, including common challenges with memory.
Okay, so when we talk about dysfunction in the hippocampus, that sounds pretty significant. What exactly does that mean in plain terms? Like, what's going on at a really tiny level that impacts how the brain works?
That's a great question because dysfunction, it can sound a bit vague, can't it? The researchers really drilled down to the cellular level. So think tiny building blocks. This review found issues like impaired neural migration, which basically means brain cells might not move to their correct spots during early development. Think of it like, I don't know, a construction crew putting some important structures in slightly the wrong places in a new building.
Right, so it's almost like a foundational wiring issue from the very beginning.
Exactly. That's a
Yeah.
good way to think about it. And it's not just where they end up. There are also issues with how these brain cells connect with each other. They observed reduced dendritic spine density. You can imagine that as maybe fewer, perhaps weaker, contact points between the cells. So if communication is about passing messages, these are like fewer or less stable bridges for those messages.
Fewer bridges, weaker bridges. Okay. And importantly, there's even decreased neurogenesis, which means fewer new brain cells are actually being formed in certain areas where they normally would be.
Wow. So these aren't just tiny glitches then. They sound like pretty fundamental issues with how the brain is built and how its communication systems are set up. How do those tiny problems, scale up? How do they affect the bigger picture?
Right, and that's where it gets even more intriguing, perhaps. These tiny changes, they then impact how whole brain circuits function at a broader level. For instance, they talk about altered glutamatergic transmission. Now, glutamate is one of the brain's main sort of go signals, its main messaging chemical. When its transmission is altered, it's like the brain's internal messaging system isn't working smoothly, maybe leading to garbled or delayed
Okay,
signals.
that makes sense, like static on a phone line or
Yeah.
something. Precisely. A good analogy. And this can lead to something called impaired long-term potentiation, which is incredibly important. See, every time you learn something new or form a memory, your brain is, in a way, building and reinforcing tiny connections, those bridges between cells. Potentiation is basically the brain's ability to make those bridges stronger, more permanent. So when that's impaired, it's like those bridges might keep weakening or collapsing, making it really difficult for learning and memories to properly stick.
Ah, okay. So it's not just about recalling information later, it's the fundamental ability to lay down and strengthen those pathways for learning in the first place.
Exactly right. That's a key part of it. And the research also points to issues with some very specialized brain cells. We'll call them the brain's rhythm keepers for simplicity. Scientifically, they're parvalbumin-positive interneurons. When these are impacted, imagine your brain trying to coordinate complex activity, but the timing is off. Like an orchestra where some instruments are out of sync. It disrupts the brain's natural rhythms.
Okay, so the timing gets thrown off.
Right. And this makes it harder to process information smoothly, maybe stay focused. Now, if we connect this all to the bigger picture, These local problems seem to lead to issues with larger brain networks communicating. The study observed reduced hippocampal prefrontal synchrony and hypoconnectivity, which is a technical way of saying the hippocampus isn't communicating as effectively or maybe as coherently
Yeah.
with the prefrontal cortex. And that's the part of our brain involved in planning, decision-making, social behavior, executive functions.
Wow. So that sounds like a potential disconnect between memory and sort of higher level control. And
Yeah.
the article notes this is especially relevant for psychosis.
Crucially, yes. That's what they highlight. The article notes these communication challenges, these imbalances in brain chemicals. They seem even more pronounced in individuals with 22q11ds who do experience psychotic symptoms. Now, it's really important to remember, and the review acknowledges this too, not everyone with 22q11ds will develop psychosis, of course. And the syndrome itself has a much broader range of impacts. But this research consistently shows that the hippocampus and these specific communication pathways, they're key areas to understand, especially regarding the risk of psychosis.
Okay, so this is incredibly important work. What does it all mean then? For you listening as parents, siblings, caregivers, how can these, quite scientific insights translate into something practical or maybe encouraging for everyday life?
That really is the critical question, isn't it? And the article does point to some real hope for the future. It's not all just description. The research they reviewed, particularly work done in mouse models, specifically targeting things like those brain cell connections we talked about, the dendritic spines, or the function of those specialized rhythm keeper interneurons. Well, some studies showed promising results. They were actually able to rescue or, let's say, improve some of the neural and cognitive challenges observed in those models. Now, this is still early days. Mouse models aren't people, but it tells us that these fundamental issues might be potentially treatable or modifiable down the line.
That is incredibly encouraging to hear, really. So while we're not talking about a cure tomorrow, obviously, we're talking about scientists identifying what might need fixing and potentially how to target it.
Absolutely. That's the direction. While these are initial steps, yeah, the fact that scientists are pinpointing specific targets in the brain that could be improved, that's a huge leap forward. It really paves the way for thinking about future therapeutic strategies. Something else the study emphasized was timing. It noted that the effectiveness of these treatments varies with age, highlighting the need to identify critical developmental windows for intervention.
Ah, timing. So getting it early could be key.
It suggests that, yes, understanding these brain changes early could be very important for figuring out when and how future interventions might work best. It really underscores the value of early support, doesn't it? Things that focus on cognitive and social development. Because these are the areas science is actively trying to understand and improve, looking for that optimal timing.
What really stands out to me here is that while this research doesn't give us like a direct to-do list for today, it gives us such a clear direction for where science is headed, which is hopeful in itself. It really reinforces the importance of supporting overall brain development and cognitive health through things maybe like cognitive behavioral therapies, good educational support, encouraging, enriching experiences. These are all ways we can proactively support the very areas science is now targeting. It feels like we're working with the science in a way, and it absolutely reinforces the value of continued research. I mean, these breakthroughs are truly how we move forward and offer new hope. And just a reminder, this deep dive and the entire What's New in 22Q series is brought to you by 22Q11 Europe. That's the European Association supporting families living with 22Q11 deletion syndrome. So as we wrap up today, just consider how truly intricate and interconnected the brain is. It's quite amazing. This research reminds us that even small, precise changes like those they're finding in the hippocampus can have significant ripple effects. But maybe more importantly, by understanding these precise mechanisms, we open new doors, new possibilities for incredibly targeted and hopefully effective approaches in the future. The journey of scientific discovery, well, it can feel slow sometimes, but it is incredibly powerful and definitely full of promise. Thank you so much for listening to What's New in 22Q, produced by 22Q11 Europe. Take care, stay hopeful, and talk to you soon.